are the Black Hand. Alliances come and go. Corporations rise and fall. But the Black Hand remains. We wait. We watch. Through it all, the Black Hand lives on. When we strike with ruthless efficiency.
I'm back from Cloud Ring an hour ago. Kill both screamed throughout the night. On the way we came across a PL camp. Man, it was an awesome fight. I'm back in the Imperium. Yoda has my boys. Back in the Imperium. Been on a fleet so long that I got 2 paddlings. Only asked FC 6 times. And Daddy, I just got the ping for a Kathleen.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The MetaShow.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MetaShow. Good morning, night, afternoon, something. I've been awake since 7 a.m. yesterday. So, guys, if you're coming from my channel, you know we've been doing the 24-hour stream, guys. So, if you're still in my chat, make sure you come over here to the TheMittani.com chat and come hang out with us. We have special guests this week, Elias, one of the main FCs for the Imperium, and we have the Mittani here. And what?
Elias, Asher Elias.
Elias.
Thank you.
Elias.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't not. Like it's. I've got a mental block.
Don't worry, Mittens. Laz is making responsible life choices by not sleeping, so I don't really blame him for not pronouncing my name correctly.
Hey. I have to give the people what they want. I promised a 24-hour stream when we hit partner, and I have to deliver.
And congratulations, by the way. That is absolutely huge. And on top of that, like we've had there's a lot of sleepless nights around in general. Like Laz was ill last week, which is unfortunately why we had to cancel the show. But managed to rally and was leading fleets the very next day. But unfortunately, because they saw that you were leading a fleet, you didn't really get any action at all on that Sunday. Everybody just kind of ran from you. And
I'm getting blue balled a lot lately. Anytime I fly for a big fleet.
Now, when you were ill last week, does the doctor inject it directly into your genitals, or does it go into your arm? How's that work?
I prefer orally.
Okay. Of course you do. Why do I even ask?
Oh my god. Okay. So yeah, we actually have a lot of stuff going on. Basically, everybody in the entirety of EVE Online who are not the Steinwagon Russians or the drone Russians are busy trying to destroy the Imperium. We have 2 regions in particular are getting attacked quite relentlessly. We have had a lot of people who are deploying to attack Vale of the Silent in particular. The big news, I guess, there before... Well, actually... Do we want to just go launch into this, or do we want to like talk into like CCP please first? How do we want to do this, Laz? I'm on my laptop, guys, so I actually am in sunny San Diego. I was going to try to show you the harbor view. There's aircraft carriers right outside my window, but unfortunately San Diego is just too bright and shiny. And,
with as much as gone on this week, we should probably hit CCP please first, and then that way it frees up the rest of the show for nothing but nullsec.
Okay.
So guys, we're going to jump straight to CCP please. And we're going to talk. There's actually quite a lot of stuff going on with CCP lately. They've uploaded the Citadel's expansion to Singularity, and it actually broke a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bugs right now in CC. Last time I checked, Stasis Webfires just don't work. There's a lot of bugs, I think, with skills and stuff like that. The copy ships command doesn't work anymore, so you can't copy your ships from TQ. There's a bunch of different stuff going on with Singularity there. But I think, and something Ash and I were talking about right before the show, is one of the biggest things that we found out is that carriers are going to be able to still fit remote reps.
Not going to be able to triage, right? Because they're not fax machines, but they'll still be able to do remote reps at some sort of capacity. Is that even going to be?
There's like a built-in not vulnerability. They can only receive like 25% or 50%, I forget the exact number, of the rep itself, and I think you lose the range bonus, so you're only getting like 20 kilometers roughly out of them. I don't know, and you're gonna have lower resist to begin with because now you have to run the capital shield extenders. So I mean they're trying to kill spider tanks obviously, but they're letting you rep for some reason. So maybe you can get rid of some damage with carriers. I don't know. Obviously we're gonna have to wait till it actually gets in the field to see how it works out. But it was interesting they didn't just go full bore and actually disallow reps entirely.
And it's easy. I mean, this is one of the things is that I don't think people expected that we were going to be having these. Excuse me. Excuse me. I've been partying a little bit too hard over here in San Diego. Somebody was asking what I'm doing out here. I'm, visiting and doing fun business stuff. But CC's been up and down so rapidly recently. We haven't really had much opportunity to test with the Citadels. Our logistics guys are in there. Everybody from the Caps team who's interested in what's going on with Capitals is trying to figure out what they can. Do we know whether the statistics that we're seeing on CC currently when it comes to Caps are what we should expect on April 27th, April 28th, which is
the damage is definitely not balanced. They've said that already, that your fighter bombers are doing like way too much damage right now.
Yeah, I think they mentioned like the shadow fighter bombers or something like that are doing like 250,000 damage or something like that, or something ridiculous.
Did you see that shadow self-destructibility? That's actually really cool. So I've always said that I think they should let the old school Titan Doomsday happen if you self-destruct your Titan. The whole on-grid Doomsday, yeah. Well, they've done something sort of like that for the Shadow Fighters. I saw a video of it. I didn't actually read what it does, but like you click it's called self-destruct or self-sacrifice or something, and then the fighter for like a minute will like orbit the ship that you target for like at like 500, and after a minute the shadow itself blows up.
Like smart bomb kind of thing.
Yeah, it does, and it appears to do a lot of damage. I don't know if it's AoE or targeted, but it's a neat idea at least. I think it's pretty cool that they're adding some like different mechanics like that.
I'm curious. I mean, have either of you gotten a chance to actually like play with the new carrier fighters at all, or this is all just?
So with all the bugs happening right now, everyone that I've talked to is like, yeah, just wait till they iron out the bugs. That way you're not wasting the ships, because they basically gave everyone super capitals and stuff on CC so that they can play around and test the changes. So I'm waiting for the bugs to get ironed out before I lose them retardedly and not be able to test the changes when they're proper.
Yeah, I'm really curious because I mean, this is the whole thing is basically. I mean, we shouldn't. Like, I don't really know. I haven't had a chance to play with them myself, but from what I understand, that it's basically going to be like aircraft carriers and World of Warships, and suddenly you're going to be like sending your fighters out, and it's going to be sort of a high action per minute sort of Korean style StarCraft gameplay. I guess I'm not really sure about that, but it's going to be really interesting to see how well that handles lag, like in sort of heavy tie-dye. Like, how is that going to work? Because we've got a lot of heavy tie-dye coming up in everybody's future, so it's relevant to our interests, I think.
Well, before we segue into that, let's go down that deep rabbit hole. Citadels are on CC now, and apparently the flat cannons and the actual weapons systems aren't something to be like laughed off. Because right now, no one gives a fuck about POS guns. Like if you warp to POS as guns, you just defang it real quick. Right. It's not a problem. But apparently a gunned Citadel is actually a threat, which I'm got a decent sized nerd boner about, because that's what like. You're like your Death Star is supposed to be. Like, you have these like mobile like point defense systems, and you're supposed to be able to like pose a threat.
If you've ever actually tried to manually gun a POS, you know how it's an awful experience. The mechanics are so bad, and you can only control like 4 or 5 modules max per character.
Well, what's going to be really curious is that like a lot of these things they can't be completely on a gate, but they can be relatively near to a gate, especially now that the grid sizes have expanded so much. So what you're going to see, I think, in a lot of ways, is are people going to be trying to create like point defense networks of Citadels? Are you going to have people spreading Citadels out across multiple systems? Or are you going to see in like big staging areas, are you going to have like an Aseranin or an Amamake? Are people going to just jam the entire system full of multiple massive citadels everywhere they can to defend one another or just otherwise mess with things. And I'm not really sure. We haven't really figured that out yet. Our logistics guys have been on CC as best as they can to test things. They're very excited about the point defense. Like the XL Citadel has this ability that can basically zot multiple subcapitals or even capitals. I think it like took out multiple dreadnoughts on the test on CC that we did. But it's just up and down and up and down. So
yeah, it's like chain lightning. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Chain lightning versus dreadnoughts. So, I mean, citadels are, it sounds like these things, particularly the XL ones, are going to be incredibly dangerous. The BPO cost is huge, but the real question is the build cost, because you only need 2 or 3 people to buy the BPOs and then start churning out BPCs before the rest of Eve ends up with the copies of these suckers. So,
well, Mins, that's a question that you're probably going to get asked a lot. Are Goonswarm, are they going to buy a BPO?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's actually one of the things is that the finance team, we actually have been getting tons of questions from everyone as to what our Citadel policy is. Are we going to buy a BPO? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And we don't usually make policy decisions until we actually have like the facts. And the reality is that we don't really know what these things are going to look like. We do know that CCP is in a sprint because, if they have committed to a late April FanFesty launch date, which is right around the corner.
I don't see how it's going. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've got to be in a nightmare crunch mode. Like, by the time that you actually get to meet the devs in Reykjavik, they're all going to be basically just like, oh my god, they're going to look like Laz right now, but worse. Like, they're going to be sleepless for a week.
Yeah.
Because it is, 2 major areas of gameplay that are getting changed. You have both the Citadels and the Capitals. They all have their own pile of bugs that have to be crushed. And we're just going to have to see what that looks like. But, once the Citadel, once we have a chance to test them, in a way that's stable, then we'll be able to have a policy and a strategy. But as it stands right now, it's like, hey, that's it sure is shooting a pretty chain lightning doomsday type thing, but beyond that, who the hell knows? So
I mean, most Citadels aren't going to be worth sieging, though. It's going to be like a large reaction tower is today. You can find reaction farms all over the map that no one would bother shooting because it's a lot of effort for minimal reward.
And even worse than that, I mean, even worse or better than that in the case of like the medium Citadels where you only have 3 hours of vulnerability that you can just spread out. It's like, okay, so I have a medium Citadel, it's doing a thing, and we know that these things will have more features bolted onto them as they iterate. But, okay, you can attack my Citadel, my medium Citadel for like every other Tuesday. You can do it from like, whatever. It's 3 hours within a week, but you can spread them out however you want. Right. So the vuln fucking, that's what we start calling shifting vulnerability windows, is just we have begun to refer to it as a vuln fuck. And the vuln fuck capacities of the Citadels are ridiculous, particularly for the small ones. So your reaction tower currently can get shot whenever, and a lot of times if people are looking for casual harassment or idle targets, nobody's going to schedule an op to blow up a medium Citadel at this particular time, right? It's just not going to happen. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe they will in high sec or in low sec or something like that, but if you have a medium Citadel and deep in Sov space, you're not going to really have to worry about people, coming hunting for your random space hunt.
Some goon thought that that the time, the 3 hours, was like infinitely divisible. So he was telling me his plan of opening a minute timer like every hour. So like they'll never be able to hit it because they had to kill it in a minute. I'm like, I don't think that's exactly how it'll work. I imagine you'll have hour-long blocks. But he was pretty sure you could divide it however you wanted.
That if that happens, that's going to be completely ridiculous all the way around.
Right, wouldn't work.
It's going to make it even more insane. So we're going to see about that. That should be fun.
So I think that's most. Oh, I guess CSM elections are coming to a close. Do we have any idea how we think we did or the Imperium did?
Well, we're not sure about that. I mean, the thing about the CSM election is that was, the CSM was treated so poorly, essentially, in the last couple of years. And then, of course, they have a new administration in charge of the CSM with Guard and with Logibro in charge of it. But we didn't really see too much discussion about CSMs. Like, I think the only group that actually ran a block list this year was the Imperium as a whole. So the question comes down to how motivated our guys were versus how motivated everybody else was. And I think that I think we'll do pretty well. I don't really want to make an estimate as to how many seats we'll pick up. I would be surprised if we didn't get at least 3. I would anticipate if a really low turnout election, analyze potentially up to 4 and 5. It'll be interesting to see how that works out, but we aren't going to find out, I believe. Normally they do the announcement at FanFest, so it's just going to be like twiddling. But it is unusual. This is the first time that we have seen in the history of CSM elections that our spy agency sees what our foes and neutrals are broadcasting, and nobody else was really pushing candidates or ballot lists at all. Besides,
there was no horse trading this year, right?
But there's nobody to horse trade with. I mean, that's the thing is that the only people who were really engaged about the election were the Imperium because of the no scions rule, right?
Yeah.
And that basically riled everybody up. And so our guys were pretty motivated because of the bullshit that they went through collectively through our representatives. And, we wanted to send Aerith and nominate in Zenuria and, Sol and Decimus and the Judge and potentially various other candidates from the Imperium. So we're just going to have to see how well we do, but there was no horses to trade with, essentially, because we don't really have that many blocks out and about in this day and age.
Oh, see, I think that's everything. I guess the only thing left would be talk about the expansion coming after FanFest. FanFest is, I believe, 25 days away.
Yes.
Is anyone here going besides me?
You're going?
Yeah.
You're going to be the only goon there.
I think I might be the only good there.
That is actually one of the things that is sort of a concern. Like when we're talking about one of the things that is good to see is that the PC was going up. We're having an actual block war. The first real big block war of Fozisov is happening right now. These last week, 2 weeks basically. So that's good, right? But I noticed, and I think this was between the last MetaShow, which was 2 weeks ago, and now CCP posted a contest on Reddit saying, or was it on Reddit or was it on just a dev blog that was reposted? But regardless, they posted a thing saying whichever alliance has the most dudes going is in the running for a prize. And at the time, PL and Goonswarm, which typically send the most people, only had, and they were number one for this, only had 22 dudes each. It was 26 from PL and 21 from Goonswarm. And that's nothing, basically. And so we don't even have, and this is the thing, we don't mandate this. This isn't a thing on goonfleet.com where we decide, hey guys, this year's FanFest thread is people will organically make a hey man who's going to FanFest thread, and there isn't even one. Everybody's going to Vegas, and
yeah, it's me Vegas, isn't it?
Just sat around and talked about how much fun Vegas was, and it's going to be curious. I think that it's going to be probably just gut feeling and looking at the numbers, probably one of the lowest turnout FanFests in years. I talked to another guy last night who is a leader in the Imperium, and he had gone like me to every FanFest since 2009, and this was going to be the first one. We sort of were cagey about it, FanFest this year, because nobody wanted to admit first that this was the one that we weren't going to. But I think that's a problem. I think the band situation is a real issue because people like entertainment. They like to party. If you're going to go to Reykjavik and spend that much money to go to Reykjavik, you want to roll hard. And back in the day, they would have Soulwax and too many DJs, DJ Z Trip, and then the last couple of years, it's been here's some random local metal band party.
Yeah. The 2 years that they had Z-Trip come back to back were the best two party on top of the world years. It was fantastic. And
that's because you missed too many DJs. You didn't get to see too many DJs. They were fucking awesome. Of course, it was only one mini DJ because the other dude was injured, and so that was an old school Lagershallen FanFest party. When you had all of the skinka coming in, and ever since they basically made it such that you couldn't have the Reykjavik wildlife join in with the space nerds, then the sort of became a little bit less entertaining because you didn't get to see.
Well, last year the party sucked. Not even going to try and sugarcoat it. It sucked. I think I was there for 10 minutes and immediately turned around and left.
We fucked off to Lebowski Bar because we literally just have a better time sitting around at Lebowski eating burgers and interacting with Icelanders and tourists who were just around and not there. It was.
Well, this year should be a little better because it is only on their first day of summer holiday, so it's going to be a little bit more active with the locals and stuff like that. But I think Vegas is just a better environment for a player gathering because
it's fucking Vegas.
I've had the cops call me more in Iceland than I've ever had in the States for noise complaints.
Really?
They're very, very strict about if it's a work night or a weeknight, you can't make noise after X amount of time. They call the cops on you instantly. But the thing is though, Vegas, if you're out clubbing or partying and you get in at 6 a.m., you can go get food anywhere. But
yeah, you can always get food. I was like, we were starving last year because we were in Reykjavik last year, and I think this is like Laz and me wandering the streets on like a fucking Wednesday. And a couple FanFests ago, like when they had some sort of like there was some sort of national holiday that it lined up with, and so during the entire period of FanFest, everybody was able to be out until like 4 in the morning, and so Nani's was open until like 5 in the morning every day, which was great. And then like, you know, it was a weeknight. Laz and I were out partying, and it was like time to sober up, and then we're like, hey, let's go get Nani's. And we ran into Headliner in the middle of the street. And he was like, I was like, you've got Nani's? And he's like, yes, he got the last sub. And
we were so mad.
Clutching it to him, precious. And we're just like, mother of God, like, we can't get food, we can't get Nani's, everything is closed, nobody is partying. And you have these groups of like goons and PL guys who always roll hard, just like wandering the streets of Reykjavik looking like lost fucking puppies because we can't get our subs, there's no place to party, there's nothing going on. And we're just like, what? Like,
it's true. All right. So, enough about FanFest, enough about CCP Please. Now what everyone wants to hear about Nullsec. Space War. The first Space War we've had, I guess, in the new FOSSI system, I guess, would probably be the real first Space War.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting stuff. I mean, everybody hates us and wants to destroy us, which is same shit, different day. You're kind of seeing essentially the same configuration as the Halloween War because, you know, war never changes. The people involved don't really change, but the war itself, the mechanics of it have changed. So you're seeing essentially the Imperium plus Russian, mostly Steinwagen-affiliated allies like Afterlife and working with Russians who are hitting Aquarius and Fountain against NC. PL and the usual crew of Test and Test spinoffs. So, like, you know, Test spinoff would be like Tissue, which has the bitter dead enders from the Fountain War. Basically the same people. This has been a low-scale war for essentially the first couple of months, and we talked about this before on the MetaShow, where there was this weird I Want ISK casino grudge thing, where there's this weird falling out ex-girlfriend drama style with the guy who runs I Want ISK and SMA, and then the I Want ISK guy is hiring any mercenary that'll move and just throwing tons of money to try to go after SMA. But the effect of this, and this was essentially the tipping point that we saw, and this is an interesting game mechanics thing, is for a long time and it's now moved beyond the I Want ISK guy, but what's happened is that for a long time people didn't attack the Imperium because there was a perception of invincibility, right? We had the space in the northwest and we had compressed because we ceded the southwest and all the way up to Cloud Ring. We ceded that territory in preparation for FOSSI along with a lot of the other entities like NC. That just dumped their space entirely. And so there was this idea that the Imperium couldn't be attacked and assaulted or made to suffer losses in FOSSI. So until the I Want ISK guy turned up and started hiring all these mercenaries, that perception essentially kept us safe. And what has happened now is that once people were getting paid to hack Imperium territory in the outer regions in particular, it became obvious that geographically speaking, we were just overstretched. So in the same sort of sense, whenever you have ADM2 systems, or CSAAs in Bumfuckistan, basically from your central core of strength, the I Want ISK mercenary contracts revealed that we could get hit and then be made to bounce from our central point to try to support our allies across the northwest, and that this was not sustainable. So this has now resulted in a dogpile, classic dogpile, the same group of people who wanted to basically draw us into a war in Fountain and Aquarius and Delve when we ditched the southwest before. It wasn't Aquarius, we didn't have Aquarius, it was Fountain and Delve, are trying to do the same thing in Veil of the Silent. So now almost all of our enemies have gotten space in, they're in Akora, they're in Veil, they're in Obi. Probably the most significant thing is that Test has decided that they want to have Veil of the Silent for themselves. They've dropped Wicked Creek and are staging in Obi with hilarious bedfellows because they're staging with Sword Dragon. And Darkness has taken I Want ISK to come up and try to help with that. So Veil of the Silent is under pretty sustained attack. There are iHubs and TCUs that are getting lost there. Particularly, we're seeing attacks on low ADM systems because that's the natural thing to do. So whenever you see a system that is essentially not getting used in FOSSI, it has only a 10 or 20 minute ADM period. Usually those are in the outer reaches, and those are the ones that are the first to get lost because they're in Bumfuckistan, nobody is using them, and thus they're the easiest to hack. So what you're seeing is the areas that we were overextended in, particularly in Tenal and in Vale of the Silent, are the ones that are under the most attack and are the most risk. And paradoxically, Pureblind and Fade, which also have relative... Fade's ADMs are okay. Pureblind's ADMs suck, but it's close enough to our central staging area that Pureblind has not really suffered that much. Even though its ADMs are crap, it's easy to defend. So what we're seeing here is really the defensive playbook for block war, and in this new system get written for the first time, which is fascinating. It sucks, obviously. Defensive wars suck. We have a lot to say about that, actually, in terms of, I should probably stop talking, actually, let somebody else talk, because I've been doing this briefing thing for so long. There's so much going on. It's fascinating. But the Imperium forces, also, just to wrap it up real quick, we have, in the initial phase of this, the enemy was not so much focused on Vale. They were spread out, and they were able to support the forces of the culture in the border of Cloud Ring. And so Cloud Ring was shedding moons. And we've actually been counterattacking, retaking our moons there pretty substantially, and the initiative has moved to Syndicate and is taking Syndicate over. So you basically see Cloud Ring and Syndicate are falling in terms of R64s to the Imperium, and meanwhile Vale of the Silent and Tenal are coming under sustained Sov attack. The Tenal thing, the most significant thing there, is actually there are Russians from a little group called In Panic, which used to be a Legion of Death Renters that are staging out of HLB and Cobalt Edge and are coming down into Tenal. And Tenal is mostly a wasteland because Initiative hasn't been living there for weeks because they're in Syndicate. So that is the distribution of the forces of the new block war.
I know people want to hear about it, and I'm going to direct this towards you, Asher. But 2D.
Sorry, I just took a nap. What's up?
So Asher, welcome to the MetaShow.
Thank you.
This is a. Never mind. So everyone wants to hear about 2D. What happened in 2D? Because I know I formed up last Sunday. We went there and the hostiles couldn't coordinate properly to get into the system quickly enough, and we just repped the towers, and they stood down as soon as the towers repped. So what happened this time in 2D?
Well, I mean, when you formed up, we got there first, and this time we got there second. There's someone slamming on my door.
They're coming for you.
Yeah, Laz, go talk for a second. Sorry, I gotta handle this.
Okay. So I got
there for the 2D fight, but I can talk about that. But then that's me running my mouth more.
Well, I got there towards the middle of the fight for 2D. I actually came home for it, and one of the biggest things that I've noticed what is happening with the Imperium is that he probably is getting swatted, Grath. I would not doubt it, Grath. He probably is getting swatted. One of the biggest things happening right now with the Imperium is acting like our hostiles used to act. The Imperium is running 5 to 6 shitty little fleets.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is why we used to curb stomp all the hostiles. Is instead of bringing 5 to 6 shitty little fleets, we'd have 3 to 4 strong fleets. So the tables have completely turned, and we're on the opposite side, and now we're getting our shit pushed in for the exact same reason. So
we're essentially running, our enemies are running our playbook against us, and unless we adapt, and actually, hopefully I'll have an opportunity to make a big announcement on the MetaShow. I'm not really sure, the timing lines up with 2000 even. I need to confirm that this has been done. But I mean, you're absolutely right. The 2D fight was a mess, but before the 2D fight was a mess, and I know exactly why it was screwed up, is because there's a MJD, an accident, one of our guys hit a typo there, and I was there for the first 5 minutes of the fight was when things went sideways. But what's happened is essentially because we're so overstretched, you have Imperium forces staging in UQ9, which is Razor and AFCON way up north. You have Imperium forces in MTAC-OE, which is where CO2 stages in Tribute. MTAC-O and Saranin, which is where most of the Imperium is, are relatively close together. So those are functionally a similar stager, kind of like how Akora and Obi for the enemy is. So that's sort of one staging area, Saranin and Echo. And then on the far east, you had Lon and Bastion were staging in separate stagers themselves, and then they moved to 2D just last week to try to defend these CSAs. So you end up with staging in Vale, you have staging in Tribute, you have staging in Saren and Losec near Pureblind, you have staging way up there, and the enemy is able to stage in Venal with the Venal hostiles, as well as just on the Vale border. And as a result, their forces are much more consolidated. So, I mean, obviously, this has got to change. And I think that you're going to be seeing a lot of restaging from the Imperium in the very near future, where essentially we go, you know, the guys who are in charge have realized that this is happening, and that one of the reasons why the Razor FCON fleet was late to 2D was because Venal hostiles were able to try to interdict them. They didn't succeed, but those guys from UQ9 were essentially having to run a gauntlet all the way from Branch, essentially, to try to get to Vale Silent. Travel times of like 45 minutes plus. It's bad and dumb and wrong. Strategically speaking, it's not sustainable at any level. So, the way that you win a block war is you consolidate everybody. And also, ADMs, we're realizing, are super critical. One of the things that you notice in the far reaches of Imperium territory is that the ADMs are dog shit because people aren't using that space. We're paying SOV bills for it, but it's just not getting used. So the enemy is in a very savvy way. They're blobbing up together, good, and they're hacking low ADM systems, also good. And then, particularly with the CSAA fights, they're able to poke us and try to get us all to coalesce from across these various territories. And meanwhile, those various territories are left vulnerable, right, to be harassment hacked. So that's a mess going into the 2D fight, at which point we had everybody staged for 2D in a way that they were going to be able to jump in. And Asher, when he gets back from his... Asher, are you back?
I'm back. Yeah.
Why don't you want to tell the story about the MJD right at the start, splitting your fleet, and that rework that screwed everything?
Sorry about that. My neighbor wanted to borrow some gas for his lawnmower, so...
Okay.
Domestic Americana issues. I suppose you talked about getting there first, right? And how we weren't there first.
Yeah, like they were there first with the Mostis, and then we had a plan to jump in simultaneously and warp your fleet. I didn't say that about how we're going to have the Bastion and Lon fleet warp in at the same time as you did, and then your fleet got MJD'd. So why don't you take it away?
Right. I mean, coordination is really important. I got my fleet the warp in that I wanted, and then we were volleying things with you can split your guns and materials. We were volleying things with half our guns, so we were cycling through a lot of battleships, and doing very well. And then some really scared sounding dude pipes up on comms and says, "I just made a huge mistake, the kind of mistake that gets you kicked from alliances." And I'm like, we're like, shut up. But then after that happened, about half our fleet jumped 100 kilometers away. And this guy had he'd put his jump button on F1 and clicked F1 or whatever. And so if he's a spy, he was an excellent spy. But I just think he was probably a new dude who just made a mistake.
No, you can tell from his tone of voice he wasn't a spy. Like he just fucked up, and that's one of those things. And like, if you're there firstest with a Mostis, random mistakes like that won't be a problem. Like it sucks, but it's not a problem. But in that case, you had these two fleets, and the Saranin fleet really needed to be on the field immediately with the Bastion and Lon fleet. And because we had to rewarp, that meant that all of the hostiles who were there, instead of being able to focus on two fleets and have to deal with that, and then have the other allied fleets like the Razor and FCON fleet join in and the CO2 fleet join in simultaneously, they were able to focus all of their fire on the Bastion and Lon fleet, rendering it individually combat ineffective right within the first 10 minutes of the fight. So instead of having all of our guys in there at once, or having multiple fleets on the field and then be able to bring in more reinforcements, they just were able to take out our fleets piecemeal. So I think that's, why don't you tell the rest of the story, because that became...
On top of that, well, it was kind of interesting. So we had our fleet, let's call it the Saranin Macario fleet, divided. And then the Bastion Lon Macario fleet had a bad warp-in, and about maybe a little less than half their ships landed inside the POS shield. So their fleet was also divided. So you had a situation where basically, both of the main fleets that were supposed to start holding the field were divided, and then PL had dropped supers, which obviously bring a lot of firepower to the field. So it was a position where if we had been there first and had our position there where we liked, it would have probably been a lot better. With the PL Supers, you know, who knows if we could have, you know, taken that fight, but it wouldn't have been the dunk that it was for them. Otherwise,
the CSA was probably screwed anyway because we weren't there first with the mostest, and because PL did bring their supers in and they had them there. You could have actually, like, the aim there at that juncture was for us to have a good subcap fight and take a, you know, ideally win on the field there. The CSA was probably screwed if they just put their fighter bombers on it, right? There was going to be too much that you can't actually do that with boss, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, looking at the losses though, we were in autocannon males, and autocannon males, they have the ability for a large smart bomb. Sorry, max. Sorry.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in time dilation, autocannons aren't going to get the job done when you need artillery. And if you don't have enough battleships in your fleet to be able to alpha in the first place, then you're not going to be able to kill things anyways. So it really comes back to fleet comp, getting there all as one instead of getting picked off piecemeal, like the Mittani was saying. Having proper fittings and setups. Looking at the kill boards, I think we ate like 100 bombers worth of bombs throughout the entire fight. So
it forced my Mercurial fleet off the field. Those bombers, very effective bombing runs. Well, with 100 bombers, even if you have good smart bomb setups, you're having to run your smart bombs so much you're damaging your own fleets. But yeah, what happened basically was the Bastion Lawn fleet had sort of that bad warp in, and they got ground down really quick by the combined forces that were there opposing them. And then the CO2 fleet, when they got there, basically replaced Bastion.
Let me interrupt you real quick. For the retards in chat who don't actually know how fleets work, the amount of the fleets that were there out of the 200 Mercurials that you're talking about that died, that was 3 separate Mercurial fleets running autocannons, and 3 separate fleets aren't going to be alphaing the same target. So if you have a strong core fleet of 150 to 180 battleships, then you're able to fit artillery and alpha 2 to 3 targets at once. So
right. So yeah. So the Lawn Bastion or Launched-in fleet was autocannon fit. CO2 was autocannon fit, and the Saarinen fleet, the one I was running, was artillery fit. And we were definitely having the most success. But yeah, once the Lawn Bastion fleet was basically ground down and almost, I would say, literally decimated in the original sense of the word, the CO2 fleet kind of replaced them right in the middle of that meat grinder. And if we like we've said before, if we had all those fleets there, it might have been a slightly different story. My fleet, we left with 120 Mercurials. We came home with 100, so we didn't really lose. I mean, 20 Mercurials is a pretty good loss, but compared to what was happening on the field, we did okay. But yeah, it was it was just basically with these giant fleets, there's some things your FC can do, some things your people can do, but like when you're coordinating between all these groups, that's sort of a huge part of it, and part we fucked up. So,
all right,
yeah, I think we've covered that one.
Yeah, and it just to confirm with all you guys in chat when I be talking about you guys are retards, I am confirming that the reason that 2D was lost was because our organization was shit. I'm not denying anything about the fight. I will be the first one to tell you that we get completely fucking dunked. And it was a complete organizational failure. It had nothing to do with anything else or excuses or anything like that.
Okay, well, speaking of that, at the start of the show, I can now announce this because it is now public. One of the things that's interesting from a strategic perspective is, one, our staging systems are too spread out, right? Like this whole Veil thing is simply geographically unsustainable. Two, we are in an unusual situation where most of our enemies who are trying to attack us don't have any space for us to attack back. So it has now been announced, as of just a few minutes ago, that we're withdrawing Bastion and Lawn to Saarinen to group up with the main force, and we're going to be doing a lot of hilarious harassment in Veil the Silent as Test and PL and everybody else get to enjoy choking on, 100 plus SOV systems with 3 structures each that they'll get to hack and then put down iHubs and TCUs and all of that. So kind of like we did in Fountain and in Delve a few months ago, in a situation where you realize that you're overextended and that your ADMs are shit, you simply pull back. And as a result, we are opening up the gates of Branch and Declan to all of our allies who are going to be able to use them and work together against this. So we agree that our organization was a little bit too overstretched, and we're going to solve that by consolidating everything and forming an even stronger fortress. The question, strategically speaking, is going to be this. Do our enemies, while they're going after their dank memes and dank frags, want to sit there for 45 minutes hacking one structure at a time and go through all of those command nodes when they go to actual high ADM systems that we can work together on, consolidate, and no longer be split up? So have fun in Vale, boys. It's been real. That's the big announcement there. Essentially, you're going to see almost any region in the Imperium now that we are not actually using, and you can tell that based upon its ADMs, is just going to be dropped, because we've realized here that in Fozzie, in terms of defensive war, unless you're willing to live in it, which is the intention of the design, and the use of that space is reflected in the ADMs, we were simply not dense enough compared to what we thought. We thought we could drop the Southwest and have things in a pretty strong core. We are essentially ditching Vale, which is 14 R64s. We are currently taking Syndicate, which is 32, and taking Cloud Ring back as well, which is 19. So it's
Syndicate has 32 R64s?
Syndicate has 32 now. Yeah, it's nuts. We got new.
No wonder Suez wanted his own personal R64 farm.
Exactly. Also, Cloud Ring, it turns out, like, I was looking at Vale last night, and I'm like, you know, Vale is actually, like, in terms of the space value, like, the SOV cost of it is pretty ridiculous compared to the amount. You get 14 R64s total.
Oh, it's a huge region. Like, what, 114 systems? Something like that?
We've got about 20 cadmium moons, which is worthwhile something, but it's not an R64. And you compare that with even Cloud Ring, which everybody thinks is shit. Cloud Ring has 19 R64. So when you're looking at Cloud Ring, which is so few systems, compared to Vale and all that, it's a pretty easy choice to say, do you want to have all those ADMs and things like that? I'm also proud to announce that you know, this is not exactly technically our fault. It's not like Goonswarm's fault in any way. We didn't, like, you know, we're not responsible for it. But as a gesture of good faith, just because, you know, it sucks to have to relocate, we are going to be replacing the Titan that was lost in build in Lon's CSA in 2D. Because sometimes you just got to go like, well, whatever, this sucks, but we want to open up.
Don't you mean the 17 Titans?
What's that?
Don't you mean the 17 Titans
yes,
that were lost?
17 Titans in build.
Yes.
There. Absolutely.
Right.
We'll be replacing all of them and just sort of, you know, make it rain like Oprah. But it's going to be interesting to see, because one of the things I'm eager to see is what happens when our enemies have to actually start putting down roots, and then they start taking SOV, and then that very SOV that they're so eager about, you know, they've been saying for so long that Fozzie SOV is so great, and that it's wonderful, and we're just whining and complaining. So what happens when they themselves put down roots with low ADMs, because they're not going to have any ADMs. When they blow up those IA hubs, they're going to have ADMs starting out from basically 0, trying to work their way in 1, working their way up. It's going to be curious to see how they respond to harassment from us in defending their space and getting spammed with nodes, because it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm eager to see them do more work. So yeah, that's the big announcement.
Right. There's been I mean, you know, I read Reddit against other people's better judgment, but man, they are really excited right now about the imminent defeat of the CFC, as they call us, and the victories. You know, they've taken 5 I hubs and 2 stations and killed 1 CSA, which basically is all we can sustain. That's our breaking point.
Back it in, boys.
Yeah.
Back to Jita.
You know, like,
it's going to be captured at any moment, and we'll be screwed. I mean, the funny thing is, actually, if you look at the ADMs all the way around, I mean, the war in Fozzie, I mean, war in Dominion also, but more so in Fozzie is basically about time and distance. So you have a certain amount of time for the attacker that they have to hack through, right? And the higher is functionally extended, right? It's easier to reinforce something like that. Also, because our enemies have collectively proven to be relatively branch ADMs are massive, right? Branches almost fully above 4.0 across the board. In many cases, it's a 5 or 6. So even though it's further away, it's actually easier for us to defend, simply because the travel time is functionally extended, right? It's easier to reinforce something like that. Also, because our enemies have collectively proven to be relatively ADHD, they have historically mostly been hacking these low ADM systems, except in extreme cases when they're going to try to do a headshot or whatever. So, which is also really hard to do in Fozzie because of the way in which the free porting system works. It just doesn't quite work like it does in Dominion. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens once we consolidate further, make sure that we don't have any weak points, and we get to see how willing our enemies are to slog through and do the homework. Because you know, like Asher says, 5 systems with random iHubs in Bumfuckistan is something to high five about, but you know, the logistical nightmare of hacking all these things. What I expect will happen, I'll make a prediction, and this will be a smug prediction that'll piss people off, so it's a good prediction. What I predict is going to happen is that almost all of the work of hacking Veil is going to be dropped on test. Already we know that a lot of the R64s in Veil are held by PL. So Test is going to have to do a lot of the hacking work in Veil, and they'll probably try to get some people to help them out at first. In the first couple of days, there'll be lots of enthusiasm. Yay, we're going to hack Veil, it's going to be great. And then the suffering will set in, because hacking things sucks. And from a political perspective, I'm curious, 1, at which point the R64s get handed over, and 2, at which point people wake up and go, wow, it's not just the Imperium saying that the system sucks. Because most of these guys don't have SOV and haven't had to do this. So now they will, and now they'll have to defend. And it'll be curious to see how it goes down. And I expect after the first 4 or 5 days of SOV lasering, people will be crying to the heavens because it's just not very much fun. So, enjoy. Congratulations. Just like with Fountain and Aquarius and Fountain and Delve, where we decided that we couldn't hold it and we're done with it, we just figured we'd drop it and harass. We're going to do the same here. So enjoy.
Mittens, I've got a conspiracy theory for you.
Go for it.
This is my J'Accuse moment. You know, this is our Telraven affair.
Okay.
So I Want Isk is funding a lot of our enemies coming over here, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know who one of Laz's stream sponsors is?
My only stream sponsor, you mean?
Your only stream sponsor? That's right.
Yeah, and people are saying that Laz, you know, is not active enough for their tastes. So on Reddit, he's being accused of not seeing enough.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
If you got accused of
find
this, then that's basically it's over. It's seriously saying mean things about you on RE. You'll get downvoted that like the reality itself will warp around you.
There was actually a thread about Laz Monday after he led the fleet on Sunday that they stood down for him, saying, you know, Laz doesn't FC for the CFC anymore. And it was literally the day after he led like a 1,000-man fleet that everyone stood down from. Yeah. So
I was streaming it too. I had 650 people watching on stream. Like,
you could have watched it live if you wanted. Yep. Oh man.
I don't even know. I think it's interesting. We're gonna have to see how it works. I mean, obviously, to be fair, anytime you retreat from a region, it sucks, right? Like, let's just be real about it. Like, giving up space is a pain in the ass, especially for the people who've been living there and trying to make it work. Vale is a massively overextended region. That's why when I was having lunch with Carneros and Thoric for the last couple of days, there was never really any question about this, right? It's just kind of like, okay, where to next? How do you deal with it? But it is interesting to see when you see a sort of a appropriately dense region in terms of Fozzy-Sov, like Declan or Branch, or most attribute except for that middle pipe there, compared to an outlying region like in the far reaches of Tenal or in the far reaches of Vale the Silent, when there's just not enough dudes there at all. Mm-hmm. And it really does make the region easy to take. I mean, that's just that's the way that the system is designed.
We don't want to give up Vale, but it's just when they have, say 800 dudes, one jump out away, and our fleets are spread out in groups of 250 in various places. Logistically, you can't.
Stager, you have to have another single point stager to have a sledgehammer. You can't actually have like 5 different stagers spread out among a million different regions. That's just the way it is. So
it'll be interesting to see in a few weeks once we consolidate. If the pace is exactly the same, if the enemy has accelerated the pace, if we stall, I don't know. I'm very excited to see it. I think.
Well, I expect a wave of hacks. I mean, after this announcement has been made, I expect a lot of excitement, and that people are going to, dogpile Vale to try to capture as much as they can. The thing that's interesting is that a lot of the vulnerability windows across the Imperium have also shifted into very early Euro time. A lot of the forces that have been against us on the border in Vale are primarily U.S. time zones. So Darkness and Test and Tissue and all of these guys are primarily U.S. TZ, and that's simply the table. So by a certain point, those vulnerability windows are gone. And the core areas of Vale, the ADMs are actually pretty high, so there's a limited window of opportunity to hit those systems. So it's going to be kind of curious to see what happens all the way around. We are essentially making this up as we go along, because there's never been a block level war. Like shifting the doctrines, you saw also since 2 weeks ago on the MetaShow, the last MetaShow, we have introduced siege fleets, again, Fountain War style, and Caracol fleets, also Fountain War style. The Caracols have been sort of plugging a hole in a defense area where, like, you could use sword fleets, which are quick reaction interceptors, to be able to deal with what we call bullshit hack attempts. Like one dude in a thorax trying to hack an iHub, you drop interceptors on it and kill it very rapidly. And then our bigger fleets were things like hurricanes and on up from there. And what we realized what our enemies had been using for the last couple of months is like T3 destroyers, like Svipples or Confessors, which would obliterate the interceptors, but were quick enough to be able to get away from the hurricanes. So we introduced Caracol doctrines, which have been extremely effective and very popular. Rapid light missile launcher Caracols are just obliterating the T3Ds. So bullshit hackers are getting stopped. Caracols are stopping the T3Ds. Anything bigger than that gets a yacht fleet drop on it. And meanwhile, our siege fleet has just burnt Cloud Ring and started supporting in Syndicate. So you're starting to see, both withdrawal from regions and also counteroffensive in new regions. So it's interesting. It's been a lot of shakeup, a lot of very rapid adaptation, and this might not work. I think it will. The Caracol worked out pretty well. The siege fleet has worked out fantastically. And I think that consolidating and raising the ADMs across the board is going to be a game changer because we're no longer going to be doing this fucking multi-staging system bullshit.
In chat, Jeff Rader says we don't want Fade, we want to kill the Goon. And to that I say, we would love to fight you. Bring your cap fleet in range of our cap fleet. Let's slug it out. Let's throw it down. To put it all on the table and see what happens.
Fight the Goon. Well, Declan is an interesting place to fight the Goon because we have, if you look at the ADMs in Declan, they're ridiculous. So all the way around, we'll see if the enemy chases and restages, but we do know that Test wants Veil, and we know that there's a lot of people out there who are there. And beyond that, it's one thing to hack 20 minutes of ADM or delegate hacking to young, eager people like Moa to do the hacking for you and do a layup. But getting the initial hack on a system with a 45-minute ADM is a completely different thing. So we'll see.
It's funny. There was an insight into your mindset there, Mittens. I was saying that we should throw down and fight, and in my mind, I'm picturing 1,000 versus 1,000 and supers being signed in, and in your mind, you're picturing. I don't think they could take this off from us. That'd be pretty tough. At them, it's just you see territory, you see a map. Oh, yeah. I see spaceships, and it's funny because it's just a different mindset. I mean, I definitely consider myself an empire builder. That's why I love being in Goons, being in the Imperium, but it's the degrees to which you see that.
Well, unless people are actually creating the timers. I mean, that's the reason why the CSA contests have been kind of having our cake and eating it too, right? The worst aspects of FozzieSov go away when you're fighting over CSA because it's an old school single point of conflict, Dominion era and post warfare era, set piece battle. The thing about FozzieSov is that as there are fewer of these things because people are just turning off their super builds, you can either fight over moons or you can end up having to hack. And if people want to actually kick people out of their space in the system, they have to do the hacking work, which is something that in many cases you don't just have a fight unless someone is willing to sit there and do the ADM slog. So, I mean, maybe they will be. Maybe they'll be so fired up that they come at us hard. But, first test has got to settle into Veil. Or maybe they'll give it up. Maybe they'll come running after us, and that'll be interesting. But,
all right, well, we're actually running out of time. I've already started the giveaway process, guys, so go ahead and type in chat, follow the stream. If you're not following the stream, you can't win. We're giving away 3 pirate rookie ship code, guys. That's not codes. We're giving away 3 pirate rookie ships. Message the channel with which rookie ship you want. I will be sending all of these out, including the backlogged ones, this Sunday after I finish my 24-hour stream and I wake up tomorrow morning. I'll be sending all that out with stuff I also gave away. So, guys, like I said, you have to follow stream. You have to talk in chat. And then message the channel with which of the 4 you want. And
all rigged all the time. That's
always rigged. And then big shout out to CCP for giving us these codes to give out today. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I don't remember the last. We're at 1,056 viewers right
It's
now.
Not every day that you give a region. I mean, basically, because we were sick the last MetaShow, people were like, right when the war was kicking off, people were like, what's going on? What are we doing? And then we didn't have a MetaShow. And so now all of our enemies want to come here and see us cry on live TV and see whether we're scared or whatever, and smug potentially. So now you have the opportunity. But
someone just linked me a battle report. Apparently, FCON and Initiative and Razor were outnumbered and beat up Darkness and Out of Sight, and those triumvirates pretty good. At least on this battle report, FCON lost 36 billion, and enemies lost 53. That's
nice,
cool.
Good work, Sister Bliss. That is excellent. Yeah, the Initiative, FCON and Razor have been hardening quite the fuck up, and the Northern Front is a little bit slower and quieter than the what's happening in the Silent. But let's see if we can get that linked in chat.
I put it in the Skype chat. There you go.
Sweet.
And in regular chat.
There we go. I see it. It is now. You can see Drew QT has linked it. It's nice. Oteki. Yeah, Sister Bliss is an angry man. I love that guy.
All right.
Yeah, Bliss is good, yeah.
Guys, the first winner, Tempest072. Congrats, buddy. Our second one is going to be Space M1. Congrats, Space. Completely rigged. And then the third is going to be Victory. Congrats, guys. Like I said, message channel with which of the rookie ships you want. I'll send those out tomorrow morning. Probably around, I think, 1500 Eve time.
That's like an Ibis.
Obliterated. Holy crap. Look at this battle report.
Guys, coming up next is the boat show. Boat show. And then, guys, I'll be continuing my 24-hour stream immediately after this. I think we have a roam scheduled. So, guys, make sure you stay tuned. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. We had a massive showing today. Really appreciate it, and I'm super, super happy to see Eve ramping up again. I was missing this.
Indeed. All block war all the time.
So, with that, guys, you have a good night. We'll see you later. Stay tuned for the boat show.
Boat show.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.